When I first heard the headline, it sounded like a bold, almost cinematic moment. Traoré crushes Israeli cyber attack in 7 minutes. It immediately makes you lean forward, curious. How does someone do that? What tools? What skill? What reaction? I'll walk you with me through what that kind of achievement would mean and what questions it leaves behind. Imagine the moment it happens. Cyber alarms blare. Digital security systems flash warnings. An intrusion from a foreign state-level actor, something many nations fear is underway. Yet, within just 7 minutes, the attack is stopped, reversed, neutralized. The systems that were under threat are intact again. That's not just technical skill, that's mastery under pressure. To do something like that, you'd need an extraordinary combination of preparation, foresight, talent, and a bit of luck. First, you'd need to know what you're guarding against. You have to have threat intelligence knowledge about the attacker's methods, malware signatures, possible entry points. If Traoré had already anticipated the vector of attack, he would have had defenses ready. Firewalls, intrusion detection systems, honeypots acting as decoys, backup protocols in place. It's not just reacting, it's having already built a fortress. Then there's the execution. It's one thing to detect. It's another to respond automatically or manually and to isolate the intruder before damage is done. You'd need teams or agents ready to cut off paths, trace malicious packets, quarantine affected systems, roll back changes, all while monitoring for stealth attacks that hide in shadows. In a scenario like this, action must be swift, precise, and segmented so that in neutralizing one breach, you don't accidentally break an essential service. Emotionally, I picture stress. The pressure must be intense. Traoré, or whoever leads, must stay calm, collected, and decisive in those critical minutes. One wrong move, disconnecting the wrong server, misconfiguring an access rule could cascade. But the fact that the story emphasizes 7 minutes suggests speed is part of the legend. Too many observers? That sounds heroic, almost dramatic. The kind of feat storytellers relish, the lone protector in the digital battlefield. Now, from a security analyst's point of view, I'd ask, was this a full-scale attack or a probing attempt? Sometimes what looks like a major cyber offensive is actually a test reconnaissance, probing for weaknesses. If Traoré destroyed it, was the attacker trying something less ambitious than reported? Was it a partial breach? Also, 7 minutes is fast, and while that heightens drama, real-world cyber defense often involves longer detection to response times. Many successful mitigations take hours or days, not minutes. Another angle, motivation and attribution. Who launched the attack? Was it a state actor, a hacktivist group, or a proxy? In many regions, cyber conflicts are indirect, using third parties. If Traoré's defense was that effective, it sends a strong signal. Your systems are watched. For attackers, reputation matters. If your strike is nullified so quickly, it discourages further attempts or forces them to change methods. Then there's the ripple effect. Even if the technical systems survive, the narrative power of such a story is huge. Governments would grab that as evidence of strength. Opponents might try retaliation in other arenas. Security policies might be overhauled. Cyber alliances and dependencies could be reassessed. If someone can shut down your attack in minutes, you begin to rethink your strategy entirely. I also think about limitations. No system is invincible. There are always edge cases, zero-day exploits, insiders, supply chain vulnerabilities. Even a win might come with costs. Some compromised data may still have leaked. Some backups may be corrupted. Some trust in the network might have been shaken. Recovering from that can take time beyond those 7 minutes. And for people following this story, what matters is proof. Logs, forensic reports, third-party verification. Without that, claims, no matter how exciting, they remain stories. Always ask, who recorded this? Who audited it? Who witnessed it? Because real credit is built on openness, not mystery. In the end, The tale of Traoré shutting down a cyber strike in 7 minutes is electrifying. It promises heroics, skill, speed, and defense in the modern age. But the balance between myth and fact must be examined carefully for the narrative to hold weight. It needs evidence, corroboration, and transparency. When a headline like Traoré defeats Israeli cyber attack in 7 minutes makes the rounds, it's natural to feel intrigued, maybe even impressed. The speed alone makes it sound legendary, like something out of a tech thriller or a blockbuster movie. 7 minutes isn't just fast, it feels impossibly fast. And the idea of one man standing tall against the might of a state-level cyber operation paints a picture of heroism that's almost irresistible. But here's the important part. There has been no credible confirmation of this event ever taking place. And that fact alone changes how we should look at it. In the age of instant news, social media posts, and viral stories, it's so easy for a narrative to take shape before anyone stops to ask, wait, did this really happen? That's where the danger lies. People want to believe in something extraordinary. They want to cheer for a David versus Goliath story, especially one that highlights resilience, intelligence, and courage. And when a story like this surfaces, it spreads because it's dramatic, not because it's verified. If this cyber clash truly occurred, you would expect detailed reports, evidence from cybersecurity experts, maybe even statements from governments or independent auditors. Cyber events at this scale don't go unnoticed. They leave trails, digital fingerprints, and server logs, forensic data, traces that specialists can analyze. Yet, none of that has been shared publicly to back up the claim. Instead, what we have are rumors, articles without sources, and social media amplification. That's not the same as proof, and in a field as technical and high stakes as cybersecurity, proof is everything. Think about it in human terms. If someone told you that they stopped a house fire in just 7 minutes, you'd probably ask, where's the footage? Where are the witnesses? What tools did you use? Because without answers, it's hard to believe such a story at face value. The same goes for cyber attacks. They're invisible to most of us, which makes it even easier for stories to be inflated or completely fabricated. Without concrete evidence, the narrative becomes more myth than fact. Now, the docent team mean Traoré, or anyone in his position, couldn't be strong in cybersecurity. Leaders today do put a lot of focus on cyber resilience. They know that in the modern era, power isn't only about tanks or soldiers, it's about who controls the flow of information, who can defend critical infrastructure, and who can withstand digital warfare. But defending a nation's networks is not the work of one man alone. It takes teams, constant monitoring, preparation, and systems that have been hardened against attack. The story of a single person shutting down a strike in minutes may feel exciting, but the reality is usually more collective and less cinematic. What makes me pause, too, is how stories like this are often used. They become tools for propaganda, for boosting morale, for inspiring people to believe in the strength of a leader or a cause. And while inspiration is not a bad thing, it blurs the line between reality and narrative. Once that line blurs, it's easy for people to take myths as facts, and that can mislead them in dangerous ways. For example, if citizens believe their country is invincible against cyber threats, they might not take necessary precautions themselves. They might assume the government can protect everything when in truth, cybersecurity requires awareness and responsibility from individuals as well. It's also worth remembering that cyber warfare is messy. Attacks aren't usually single events that come and go in minutes. They can be prolonged campaigns, months or years of probing, testing, and infiltrating. Many of the most devastating breaches in history weren't loud or dramatic. They were slow, subtle, and went unnoticed until it was too late. So when we hear a claim about a massive attack being completely destroyed in just 7 minutes, skepticism is healthy. The digital battlefield doesn't always work in such clean, dramatic timeframes. What I really feel looking at this story is the need to hold on to critical thinking. Hope, excitement, and admiration are all natural human emotions, but they shouldn't replace the demand for evidence. We live in a time when stories can be crafted, polished, and shared to millions in seconds, whether or not they're true. And once a story catches fire, it's very hard to put out, even if it turns out to be false. That's why being careful, asking questions, and not taking every claim at face value is so important. There's also a human cost to exaggerated claims. If leaders are praised for victories that may not have happened, it diverts attention from the real work of strengthening defenses. It creates a false sense of security. And when the next real attack comes, people may not be as prepared as they should be. Believing in myths is comforting, but it can leave you exposed when reality doesn't match the story. So yes, the headline is flashy, and yes, it stirs emotions. But when you peel it back, when you look for proof, what you find is silence. No technical reports, no independent confirmations, no verifiable evidence. Without that, the story remains just that, a story. And while stories can inspire, they shouldn't be mistaken for facts. The truth, though sometimes less glamorous, is always the stronger foundation to build on. When people talk about cyber defense, it often sounds like a technical subject reserved for IT departments or government agencies. But when you break it down, the essence of protecting systems and data comes down to three things that feel almost human in nature: preparation, monitoring, and rapid response. These three steps are like the instincts we develop in life to deal with challenges. We prepare before a storm, we keep watch when things feel uncertain, and we react quickly when something goes wrong. Cyber defense is no different. It's only the battlefield is invisible and the stakes are incredibly high. Preparation is the quiet part, the work that nobody sees until something bad happens. Imagine it like locking your doors at night or keeping a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. Most of the time it feels unnecessary, but the moment trouble arrives. Preparation is the difference between disaster and survival. In cybersecurity, preparation means having the right firewalls, updated systems, backups, and strong authentication methods in place. It's about training teams, running simulations, and building a mindset that assumes attacks will happen eventually. There's almost a sense of humility in it to accept that threats exist, and you build your defenses not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Monitoring is where vigilance comes into play. In life, we pay attention to small signs: a strange noise in the car engine, flicker in the lights, a gut feeling that something is off. Cyber defense works in much the same way. Monitoring means keeping an eye on networks, watching traffic, analyzing patterns, and looking for anomalies. Sometimes it's automated with powerful tools that can detect suspicious behavior, but it also requires human intuition. Skilled analysts can notice things that machines miss, the tiny details that give away a breach. It's like a neighborhood watch in the digital world, constantly on alert, making sure nothing unusual slips through unnoticed. And then there's rapid response, the part that separates the prepared from the vulnerable. You can prepare for years and monitor tirelessly, but if you freeze in the moment of crisis, the damage is done. Cyber attacks don't wait. They spread fast, they evolve, and they exploit hesitation. Responding quickly means isolating systems, shutting down compromised accounts, patching vulnerabilities, and communicating with the right people instantly. It's action without panic. I think of it like first aid. If someone is hurt, every second matters. Knowing what to do calmly and quickly can save a life. In the digital world, fast and coordinated action can save millions of dollars, protect reputations, and even safeguard national security. What makes this triad of preparation, monitoring, and rapid response so powerful is how interconnected they are. You can't respond quickly if you haven't prepared ahead of time. You can't prepare properly if you're not monitoring to know where weaknesses are. And you can't monitor effectively if you don't have a plan for what to do when you find something wrong. Each piece feeds the other, creating a cycle of resilience that strengthens over time, on a more human level. I find it fascinating how much cyber defense mirrors our everyday lives. We all prepare, whether it's saving money, studying for exams, or carrying an umbrella in case of rain. We all monitor, noticing when relationships shift or when our health feels off. And we all respond, sometimes faster than we think we're capable of, when faced with emergencies. The digital world just amplifies these instincts, placing them in a landscape where the threats aren't visible to the naked, but are just as real. And there's another element: emotion. People who work in cybersecurity don't just fight code and malware. They battle stress, pressure, and the fear of what could go wrong. Imagine being on call, knowing that one slip could expose sensitive data or allow hackers inside critical infrastructure. Preparation gives them confidence. Monitoring gives them clarity. And rapid response gives them purpose in those high-stakes moments. I also think about how empowering it is to understand these concepts, even on a personal level. You don't have to run a government or a major company to practice cyber defense. As individuals, we prepare by updating our software and using strong passwords. We monitor by staying alert to phishing emails or suspicious links. And we respond by acting quickly when we realize something's wrong, changing a password, freezing a bank account, or reporting an issue before it spreads. The same principles scale up to the biggest organizations in the world, which is proof that these simple steps are universally powerful. In the end, effective cyber defense is not magic, and it's not luck. It's about discipline, foresight, and the willingness to act. Preparation builds the foundation. Monitoring keeps the eyes open. Rapid response ensures that when the storm finally hits, you don't collapse, you stand firm. And just like in life, the ones who thrive are the ones who are ready before the battle even begins. There's something magnetic about stories that sound larger than life. They spark our imagination. They fill us with pride. They make us believe that ordinary limits can be broken. When we hear about a leader defeating a cyber attack in record time or uncovering a plot in mere minutes, it lights up that part of us that craves heroes. These kinds of stories inspire us because they give shape to hope. They tell us that against all odds, strength and intelligence can triumph, but at the same time, they blur the line between fact and myth, leaving us in that uneasy space where excitement collides with reality. Humans have always loved legends. Think of the tales passed down through generations: warriors who fought entire armies single-handedly, explorers who tamed the wildest seas, thinkers who solved impossible puzzles in an instant. We don't necessarily need every detail to be true for the story to matter. What we need is the feeling it leaves behind. In modern times, cyber battles and digital defenses are becoming the new stage for these myths. Instead of swords and shields, the imagery is firewalls and encryption keys. And when someone says a cyber strike was crushed in just 7 minutes, it sounds almost like a 21st century legend. But here's where it gets tricky. In the old days, myths and legends were clearly understood as symbolic or exaggerated. Today, with information spreading so fast, it's not always easy to separate exaggeration from fact. A claim made once, without proof, can be repeated so many times online that it begins to feel true, even when no solid evidence exists. That's the blur the line where inspiration starts turning into misinformation. On one hand, there's a powerful upside. These kinds of stories can lift people's spirits. They can strengthen national pride, inspire young minds to pursue cybersecurity or leadership, and reassure citizens that they're being protected. In places where people may feel under pressure or uncertain about the future, a story like this becomes more than just news. It becomes a symbol of resilience. And symbols are powerful. They can unite communities, spark movements, and give people the courage to keep going when times are tough. On the other hand, there's a quiet danger. When myths are treated as facts, people may develop unrealistic expectations. If citizens believe their systems are untouchable because of one legendary defense, they may underestimate real vulnerabilities. They might ignore warnings, skip precautions, or dismiss the ongoing work that actually keeps digital infrastructure safe. The myth can overshadow the reality. And the reality is that cybersecurity is a constant struggle. It's not a one-time victory in 7 minutes. Another layer to this is how stories are used. Governments, media outlets, and influencers know the emotional power of a gripping tale. They know people are more likely to share and engage with dramatic narratives than with technical reports full of data and graphs. And so, stories sometimes get polished, reshaped, magnified, until they look like shining victories even when the truth is more complicated. The intention may not always be malicious. Sometimes it's simply about offering hope. But the end result is still a distortion of reality. For the people hearing these stories, it creates a mix of emotions. Part of you wants to believe. You want to cheer for the underdog, to see someone stand tall in the digital battlefield and win. But another part of you hesitates, asking quietly, is this really what happened? That tug of war between belief and doubt is what defines this blurred line between fact and myth. And it's not always easy to navigate. What helps, I think, is remembering that inspiration doesn't have to come only from perfect victories or superhuman feats. Real courage and resilience can be just as inspiring, even if they don't fit neatly into a headline. The long nights that cybersecurity teams spend monitoring networks, the countless hours spent patching vulnerabilities, the persistence in fighting back against constant probing. These aren't stories that go viral, but they're the truth. They may not be wrapped in dramatic time limits like 7 minutes, but they represent real dedication, and that's just as worthy of admiration. It's also about balance. We don't need to reject inspiring stories entirely. There's value in letting myths motivate us, as long as we also ground ourselves in reality. Just because a story is exaggerated doesn't mean it's meaningless. It can still symbolize strength, its intelligence, and resilience. The key is to recognize it as a story, not mistake it for unquestionable fact. When we do that, we protect ourselves from disillusionment while still holding on to the hope that inspires us. And perhaps that's what makes this tension so human. We're drawn to both truth and storytelling. We want the facts, but we also want the magic. We crave inspiration, but we also need grounding. Stories like these sit right in the middle, giving us a taste of both if we're careful enough to see them for what they really are. If this opened your eyes, imagine what's coming next. Don't just watch from the sidelines. Join the community that's always one step ahead. Hit subscribe so you never miss an update. Drop a like if you found this valuable. And share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here.